For years, trying to figure out how sustainable a company really is has been, well, a huge challenge. But a massive change is happening right now, one that's aiming to create a single common language for all of this. Okay, let's dive in. It seems like a simple question, right? But the answer has been incredibly complicated. Think about it. If you're an investor and you're looking at two different companies, how do you actually compare their environmental performance? How do you know if you're even comparing apples to apples? Well, for the longest time, you really couldn't. And the reason why is what people call the alphabet soup of standards. You had all these different reporting frameworks, and everything was voluntary. So companies could kind of pick and choose which ones to follow, or none at all. And this created this totally fragmented landscape where a real, genuine, side by side comparison was, yeah, pretty much impossible.
And look, this wasn't just confusing. It had real-world costs. This complexity was a huge burden for absolutely everyone. Investors couldn't get the clear data they needed. Companies were drowning in different reporting requests. And regulators, well, they had a tough time trying to oversee the market at all. So all of this chaos led to this big global call for one single unified standard. What was the goal? Pretty simple, actually, to bring the same kind of rigor and comparability to sustainability reporting that we've had for financial accounting for like decades. And you know what? Things moved surprisingly quickly. It all kicked off at the COP26 climate conference back in 2021. The IFRS Foundation, that's the same group that oversees accounting standards in over 140 countries, they formed a new group, the International Sustainability Standards Board, or the ISSB. And boom, by June 2023, the ISSB had already launched its first two major standards. Okay, so here's the most important concept to grasp, this idea of a global baseline. Now, the ISSB's standards, they're not designed to just wipe out every local rule, not at all. Instead, they create a universal foundation, a common starting point that every country can then add to. And think of it like foundational building blocks for a house. And what was so smart about this whole approach is that the ISSB didn't just try to reinvent the wheel. They didn't start from scratch. They took the best, most widely used parts of the frameworks that already existed. Things like TCFD and the SASB standards. And this is huge because it makes the transition so much easier for all those companies that were already doing some form of reporting. So the ISSB came out of the gate with two key standards. First, you've got IFRS S1. You can think of this one as the big foundational rulebook. It covers the general requirements for how to report on all sustainability-related topics. Then you have IFRS S2, which is the first topic-specific standard, and its focus is all about climate, drilling right down into the nitty-gritty of climate risks and opportunities. So what do these standards actually require companies to do? Well, at the very heart of it all is a really simple but powerful structure, one they actually inherited from the TCFD framework. And it all boils down to four core questions that every company is now expected to answer. These answers are organized into what are called the four core pillars: governance, strategy, risk management, and metrics and targets. Let's quickly break down what each of those really means. First up, governance. This one is all about accountability. Basically, who is in charge? Companies have to be crystal clear about who is overseeing these sustainability issues. Is it the board itself, a special committee? And how often are they getting the right information? Do they even have the skills to make these big calls? Second is strategy. It's one thing to identify a risk, but you've got to have a plan, right? So this is where a company explains how sustainability issues actually affect their business model, their strategy, their financial planning, how are they going to adapt, and crucially, what are the financial implications of that plan? Third pillar, risk management. Here, companies have to lay out their whole process. How are they identifying, assessing, and managing their sustainability risks? And, this is super important, how is that process plugged into their overall company risk management? It can't just be some separate thing off to the side. And finally, number 4, metrics and targets. Honestly, this is where the rubber meets the road. It's all about the data. Companies have to disclose the specific metrics they're using to measure their performance and what targets they've set for themselves. This is what lets investors actually see if they're making progress or just talking a good game. Okay, so that's the what of the new standards. But let's talk about the why. Why does this big shift from that messy alphabet soup to the structured 4-pillar system? Why does it really matter? Well, it's because it's designed to take sustainability reporting from being just a PR exercise and turn it into a core part of making real financial decisions.
And to understand that, you have to know that these standards are absolutely laser focused on one primary audience: investors, lenders, and other creditors, basically the people providing the cash. This isn't about making every single stakeholder group happy. It's about giving the financial community the specific, hard data they need. This brings us to a really crucial distinction, what we call financial materiality versus impact materiality. The ISSB standards, they are focused squarely on financial materiality. The key question is, how do sustainability issues affect the company's bottom line? How could they create or destroy financial value? Now, a company's impact on the world is obviously important, but that's handled by other frameworks like the GRI. So, at the end of the day, the whole point of this is to give capital markets the fuel they need to work properly. When the information is consistent, when it's comparable, and when it's reliable, investors can do their job. They can properly price risk and ultimately channel money to the companies that are actually building a sustainable future. And don't underestimate just how big this could get. Remember, more than 140 countries already require companies to use the IFRS standards for their regular accounting. That creates a huge, powerful precedent that suggests these new sustainability standards could very well become the global norm too. All right, so let's wrap this up with the key takeaways. First, these new ISSB standards are replacing that confusing alphabet soup with one single global baseline. Second, they're built around that clear four-pillar structure: governance, strategy, risk, and metrics. Third, they are focused like a laser on the financial information that investors need. And the whole point of all of this? To finally drive some real accountability and transparency in the market. Which, of course, leaves us with the big final question. The tools are here, the common language, the architecture, it's all in place. So will this finally be the thing that turns all those vague corporate promises into actual, measurable, and comparable progress? I guess we'll have to wait and see.